Hey everybody, it's Joric. Welcome back. I hope you're doing great wherever you are in the world. Today I want to talk about moving away from the United States. Several of you are going to contemplate doing that in the coming years, and I want to talk about our experience, and I want to make several recommendations that as you're putting your checklist together on the who, what, where, when, and why, and things that you should do, want to make sure that these things are a part of your list. They may already be part of something you're working on, but hopefully there's a few things in here that'll be new to you that you can add just to make sure that if you're going to be making a move, which is a big move from your home country, the States, someplace else, that you kind of know what you're getting into. And this might help the recommendations here be able to set you on a good course, and hopefully the transition to that new country will be positive and fruitful and long term, or for however long you're looking to be there. So let's get into it. What I would really love is for those of you that are going to be or are considering a move outside of the United States, please leave a comment below. Where are you going? Where are you in the process? What's the destination? There might be other people that are interested in going to the same place that you are, or maybe not. Maybe give some reasons why you're going. That would be great. I want to give you a little history on us at the top of this. If you don't already know, we moved from the United States, from Arizona to Portugal in 2019. So we wanted to live in Europe. Portugal is a part of Europe. So we've got what we wanted. We've been here a little over 4 years. So for those of you that are looking to move, the obvious question, the first question, where are you going? Are you going to be moving to Canada, moving to Mexico, looking at Europe yourself, looking at a place in Asia? Are you thinking of Central American countries like Panama, Costa Rica, thinking of South America? Where in the world are you looking to move to? And obviously that is probably the biggest and most central question that anybody could try to get an answer to. So part of getting the answer to that is scouting trips, going to places, and I would recommend going to the location that you're interested in a couple of times, if not more, and trying to do it in a high tourist season if you're going to a tourist friendly place, as well as in the low season or a season that the weather might be a little more inclement, meaning if there's a snow season or a rainy season, or if it's just really hot. So that way you get a taste of what that potential country is like. Not so much when you're a tourist and you're just there for a few days, but if you're spending a couple of weeks at a time there, or if you're able to spend more time, you really get immersed into what the culture is like in the high tourist season if you're dealing with a lot of people, or when it's really rainy, especially if you don't come from a place where there's a lot of rain or snow or different types of weather. Something to make sure that as you're thinking about the where, those are all things that you start thinking about. So taking multiple scouting trips, highly recommend, and hopefully you're already doing that and you've already gone past that to the next part, which is why. Why are you moving? And I will say specifically from the United States, there's usually two camps of people. There are people that are looking to move to a particular country for a set of reasons. Then there's also a group of people that are moving away from the United States for a set of reasons. So they're not necessarily looking for a particular home per se. They just want to get out of the situation that they're in the States. And there may be a combination, or might be a third group of people, probably not as many, that want to move away, but also move to. So those might be a different sets of reasons. But really the why, getting after that and asking yourself several times, why are you doing this? And all of the family members that you're going to be moving with. So if you're moving as a couple or as a family, getting everyone involved and just making sure that the why is answered properly, because it could be as simple as your retirement. It could be a job move. It could be because you think that there's a better situation out there, or you want to get out, again, as I mentioned, of the situation that you're in and kind of start fresh someplace else. All of those could be reasons for the why, but it is something that all along the process, and even as you transition to that new country, you're going to want to ask that question just to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And whatever those reasons are, we all have our own reasons, as you will too, but just making sure that you're kind of centered in your approach in moving to that new country. So then that takes care of maybe the why, but then you get to the nitty gritty, the details, things like immigration. What type of visa do you need? What documentation is needed? How much will it cost? How long will it take? That's all the things that have to be considered because you're living in the US. So you're either paying rent or have a mortgage, you have property and assets. And that leads to my next point, which is your stuff, the logistics, the timing of the move. What do you keep in the US? What do you get rid of? Do you put things in storage? Or do you sell off and start new someplace else? What about your investments, your bank accounts, credit cards? What are you keeping? And then what are you selling? There's a lot of that's a 10-second statement, but there's hundreds of things that could go into that as far as what you're going to keep or leave behind in the US or not. Maybe it's you're just going to cut bait and start fresh someplace else. All of those things could be on the table, but there's a lot of logistics there that you need to think about when you're considering a move someplace else. The next thing that I would look at is the economics of where you're going. And it's an easy way. The better than probably decades prior, the internet, newspapers, news channels, blogs, YouTube channels, you can get a pretty fair sense of what the economic picture looks like. And there's a website called Numbeo. There are others, but that one's pretty good at giving you a comparison of the cost of living of, let's say, where you're at right now and where you would be moving to. So at least you have a preview of what you might be getting into for things like groceries, buying an automobile or leasing one, rents, property prices, how much it costs to go out to dinner. Those are things that you can get fairly easily. And as well, when you're here, in whatever country that is. Here for us was the move to Portugal. We went to the grocery store. We went to a couple of them actually to see what the prices were like. Because although we read blogs and saw YouTube videos, we just wanted to make sure for ourselves that those prices were close to what we actually saw in the store. So that's something. Cost of utilities. You can email and contact companies to find out what potential costs would be. Cell phone plans. And that also goes into what do you need in the US, if anything, and coverage in wherever you may be moving to. For us, Europe. For you, it could be Singapore. Who knows? Those are things to think about. And then the economics of as well of the new place, taxes, tax considerations. Are you looking to go to a place that has a tax treaty with the United States? You're going to want to do a Google search of the name of the country you're going to and tax treaty United States to see if the US has one, and then to find out what potential advantages there may be or disadvantages there are of moving to that particular country based upon what type of tax agreement they have, as well as if there's any type of tax incentives that that new country might have that might help lure you or might tip the scale over another country as far as wanting to move there. And then this is something, the next thing that I want to talk about briefly is something that we didn't research and pay attention to, but I'll do the do as I say, not as I do portion of the video is we didn't review this. We should have. It didn't make a difference, but the politics. What is going on with the politics in the country? And of course, you can never predict the future of what might be going on in the United States as well as abroad. But it is worth checking out and looking historically. Again, newspapers and articles will have the histories of, let's say, the last few elections and what may be percolating in a country. So you know what you're getting into, so you don't happen to go to the hassle of moving and then you're in a new country and something happens. Things as drastic as a civil war, or there's an election that changes things, the sentiment towards Americans or just the economics of the country. Paying attention to the politics is, again, I'll be honest, I've said this in many videos. One of the reasons I enjoy not being in the US is to get away from the noise of politics. But it's smart to be able to at least know what the lay of the land is when it comes to the political mood and the tone of a country and how that plays into your politics and what might be happening while you move and then for however long you're in that particular country. It's worth checking out. And then I mentioned kind of the climate, the political climate. Right next to that is the social climate. What's going on socially? What types of things are happening in that particular country? Again, you can read articles, watch YouTube channels, or read newspapers, even see news channels online to get a feel for what's happening. And part of that is what is the disposition towards Americans, because there are some countries that I'll say are probably more tolerant or open to having us abroad, and there's others that would prefer that we never show up. So knowing that ahead of time can help you get over maybe some frustration if you are going to a country that doesn't really want Americans there. At least if you know that going into that, that'll manage expectations, or that may change your mind on where you potentially might be moving to. Facebook groups, Reddit groups, there's a ton of different types of subgroups on different websites that can give you a lot of different opinions and perspectives, so you can get kind of a holistic view, good, bad, or indifferent, from a number of expats and immigrants on almost every country that you may want to move to. So getting the social climate and a temperature of that is important, I think, when making a decision on what country to move to. And then you have the information gathering process along those lines. And as I referred to, the newspapers, news channels, forums, chat rooms, Facebook groups, you name it. There's a lot of social media ways as well as traditional media where you can get information. So again, you have a well-rounded view of that potential country. And I will say, at the making of this video, which is 2023, for example, moving to Portugal, we were considering it in 2017 and 18, moved in 2019. So we've been here 4 years. We considered it over 5. Well, when we were looking at it, there were probably 5 to 7 people making videos about Portugal. And to be honest, no disrespect to them, but most of them was, it's the greatest place ever. It's paradise. It's rainbows and unicorns. There wasn't necessarily day-to-day life or, what happens once the honeymoon's over and you're here every day. What are some of the maybe downsides of being here? Now there's more content than ever. There's probably 100 or more of us that do that. And as you pick the country that you're looking to move to, you will find the same thing, a bunch of people. And I would encourage you to listen to everybody. Just that way, you get several different opinions on a particular place, and you can weigh what you like and don't like of those other opinions and see how that fits with your philosophy and your personality when you're looking to be in a new country and looking to leave the US. This is going to be a little bit of a curveball because for those of you leaving the United States, and we were one of them, we were interested in going to a country where the healthcare system was, I'll say, different and in some cases better, meaning lower prescription costs, just lower costs in general when you're going in for surgery or routine care. So we made that decision. Portugal definitely checked that box for us. But I want to ask this question of you is, how is your health? How is the health of the family members that are going to be embarking on this journey with you? And where I'm going with that is, are you healthy? And it's a non-starter, so you move on to the next point, and you'll worry about getting the insurance when you need it as part of the immigration process. Or do you have something going on right now that I'll call it a pre-existing condition? It's kind of an old term, but in some countries outside of the US, they have pre-existing clauses in some of their insurances. So if you're in the middle of, let's say, a therapy or a rehab and you move someplace else, you may not be able to get coverage right away, or there may be different limitations depending on what type of insurance you have and what type of, let's say, public option or national coverage is offered in the country that you're looking for. Um, or on the other end of the spectrum, are you not so healthy? So your maybe an idea of moving elsewhere is to get more coverage or more cost effective coverage for a major surgery that you may be having, or go down a dark road. Let's say you have cancer. What does that look like in another country? Trying to research that before you get there and before you even start the process, that may be a deal breaker because of what you may be up against when you get to that new country. Or it may be the opposite, going, I can't get out of the US quick enough. I got to get to this country because they're going to be very open and I'll be able to get a lot of care at a much more affordable price. So could go the other way as well. But your health is more important to me than your health care options. I mean, yes, many countries offer, I'll say, a better system or definitely a more affordable system than the US. So that is something to keep in mind. But how your health is important in this process, because if it takes 2 years to move from the US to, let's say, Panama, and in that 2 years something happens or your health starts failing, that may determine whether you're going to ultimately move anywhere or stay where you're at. So it's an important thing to consider. And then the last couple of items that I want to touch on, I do this because I do expat consulting for people considering a move to Portugal, is that, are you looking for a short-term or long-term solution? And neither one's a right answer or wrong answer, and you can change your mind once you get to a country. I think that you shouldn't stress yourself out about you put all your eggs in the basket of a country and it didn't work out. Well, you should give yourself a break and be able to move back home, if you will. I think we all have that opportunity. But is it a short-term issue? Meaning, is it a job transfer? So pragmatic. You're going to be there for a few years. You're going to fulfill the expat agreement, the employment contract, and then you're going to move back home, and you know that. Or are you thinking more long-term, where this is a place that you want to spend more time working, or you want to transition or be in a retirement setting in that new country, and understanding what goes into that? And what does that look like if you are not coming home ever, or you're going to be coming home, let's say, in 2 to 3 years? Having some understanding and making sure that not just you, but the people you're moving with are on the same page with that, so that you don't start missing home and then all of a sudden people are going, I don't ever want to go back. I want to stay in Italy or Greece or wherever it may be. Making sure that your loved ones and your family or friends that you're moving with are reading from the same chapter, I think, is very important, so that that doesn't create a rift as you're moving to a new country. And along those lines, as I mentioned, family and friends. There's no way to truly quantify this or put this as a dollar value, but your family and friends, when you move away, are you going to put together a strategy? What's your strategy for seeing them and being around them? Now, you may be someone going, I can't move away fast enough. I don't ever want to see these people again. Get me to this new country. I think for the most part, we're in this camp, and I think most of the people that we've met from around the world that live in Portugal miss family and friends, and you're able to, through social media, our phones, laptops, WhatsApp, there's different, Facebook Messenger, you name it. There's a number of ways that we can connect with people in a way that we couldn't in decades past. So that's great. But for those of you that do miss, do you have a thought, or have you set aside in your finances going home once a year or twice a year? For example, if you're in Mexico or Canada, it's a little easier because it'd probably be a more affordable flight or a drive, depending on where you live in the US. But if you're in Europe, you're in Asia, you're in Australia, it's not as easy to get home. And those are things that can weigh on you. Are you okay missing those milestone moments, those anniversaries, those birthdays, some of the weddings, the marriages that take place, the births that take place? Those are things that, as they happen, and maybe you type a little message to them, or you call them or text them, or you leave happy anniversary on Facebook, is that something that starts weighing on you in year 2, 3, 4, 5? In some cases, it gets easier with time. In other cases, it gets more difficult in time because maybe you don't always have the opportunity to just up and fly back to go see somebody, or now you have 3 or 4 times during the year you want to go back home and you just don't have the finances to do that. So kind of preparing yourself before you even make a move and start thinking about that. Because if you are someone that is a family first, or like being around family and like having friends, it is difficult, I think, anywhere someone moves outside of their home country. So I'm not speaking Americans moving abroad. I'm talking about anybody moving anywhere outside of their country. It's not as easy to make friendships, and it's not often that your family moves with you. So thinking about that and spending time with whoever, if it's you looking in the mirror and talking to yourself about it, to be honest, as well as if you're going with a spouse or a partner or family members, getting their input and just, talking openly and honestly about family and friends and what does that mean. And I will be honest with you, you don't really know until you kind of have to leave to find that out. And you'll know 6 months in, a year in. We're now 4 years in, and we still have the tug to go back home now and again to see people. And I don't think that's going to stop for us. But other people, again, it may wane. And I do know of some couples that have left the country we're in now, Portugal, to move home. And it was specifically because they missed their family. And they missed them a heck of a lot more than they thought they were going to. And they decided, okay, we're going to leave and close up shop and go back home. That's okay. Give yourself some slack. If it doesn't work out in the country you're going to, maybe another country will work out, or maybe going back home, but maybe moving to a different location back home in the States might make sense. And that leads to my last point. I know it's a longer video than what most of you expect from me, but the last point here is, what are you going to do? And I think you need to think about this before you do a move, of what happens when things go sideways, that plan B or plan C. And where I'm going with that. So you miss family. Okay. So do you go home? Is it as simple as that? Or, you can thoroughly research something and you've looked at the politics. I don't think anything's going to change, but then an election comes up and something happens, or there is some unrest, some civil unrest, or some social cause that changes the dynamic of the country that you're in, and where what you planned for before you moved is different now that you're there. It could be everything from maybe the tax situation. You thought you knew what you were getting into, but then all of a sudden you got a big bill in the new country, and you got a big bill from Uncle Sam, and you're going, okay, I can't keep doing this. So we've got to go back home. Or just you moved and it just wasn't the fit that you thought it was. Living day to day in a country as one would expect is much different than when you're a tourist for a couple of weeks in that location. And it may just turn out to be something that isn't what you expect. The hope is that it's everything you expected, or mostly what you expected, so that as you're considering a move and you do the move, most of what you've researched and considered is applicable in your new place, because you've already gone through the rabbit holes of forums for this, that, and the other thing. So you have a good idea of what you're getting into, and there's no craziness that happens government-wise that throws a monkey wrench into your travels. But these are the things that if things go sideways, what are your options? Thinking through a handful of plan Bs, and plan B is stay put, that's part of the plan. Move back home to the States, that's a part. Move someplace else, so you have options. Thinking through that. So as you put your plan to leave the United States in motion, you already are thinking, starting with the end in mind. You're at a place for 10 years and it's not what you wanted, or it's everything that you wanted. What do you do with all the stuff that you've left back in the States? Do you sell it off? Do you come back and do a garage sale, close your bank accounts, and then move for good? Or, do you keep that stuff just in case, someday we might end up moving back? There's no good answer there. There's only kind of recommendations. I'm just throwing out ideas because as I talk to more people that are looking to leave the US and move somewhere on the globe, these are things that we didn't always think about or put a lot of stock in that I think is worth thinking about when you're going to consider that move. So, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video and enjoy your travels. And please comment and let us know where you're going and what's some of the thought process into why you're headed to the country that you're headed and why you're leaving the US. Thank you and have a great day.